You are about to enter the Ghostly Archives. Welcome, everyone. We are about to go live on the Ghostly Archives podcast. I have an amazing guest for you tonight, as usual. But while we're waiting for everyone to stream in, you can help the podcast grow by doing a few clicks and giving a little bit of your time. So remember, while you're waiting for the live stream to start, go over and subscribe to your favorite platform, give the content a like, thumbs up, and make sure to share that content on your social media or share it from the platform you're viewing it on. And also, go to the audio podcast platform of your choice and give us 5 stars, especially on iTunes. That helps the show up in the ratings and it helps people become aware of us. So, hang tight, got about another minute, and we'll be right with you with tonight's special guest. Well, hello, everybody. Me and Jen are in the house today. I hope you guys are into electronic voice phenomena because we've got a whole bunch of clips here for you today. But before I get into that, remember, guys, subscribe, like, share, and if you're on the audio podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, rate the podcast 5 stars because it helps us show up in the charts, which is really good. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing fairly good. Fairly good. Lots of snow days. It's cold up here. How about you?
It's not as much snow. We had a bit of snow. I shoveled my way out. I managed to get my little tiny car out of the driveway, and
Well, hey,
it's not as cold.
there you go.
I mean, I was hearing in Canada like minus 40 Fahrenheit, like up in
Oh.
Alberta where I lived a long time ago, like some serious cold weather. So not quite that cold.
Well, that's
God.
good.
Yeah. So, you know, Jen was on before about electronic voice phenomenon, and so just going to say something. I just got an alert. I know many of the people who normally show up may not be watching because there's a primary going on, but I just got news saying that Trump won the New Hampshire primary. So congratulations, Donald Trump. Trump won. I just got a notification on my phone. Here we go. All right, so moving on. And actually, guys, I'm planning to do a political show maybe Sunday, Monday mornings or something like that. That's totally different from this one. That's more my political side. So that was just me practicing. That was my practice. But Jen's been here before, and we talked about EVP, electronic voice phenomena, but we did it. The files weren't working, and I have a whole bunch of Jen's files today that we're going to talk about, and hopefully we can discuss some of the cases, and maybe I'll have some questions about For those of you who don't know, electronic voice phenomena is sounds found on electronic recordings that are interpreted as ghostly voices or communications, simply put. And people who are interested to see if locations have certain energies or spirits will take a tape recorder and sitting in the dark, or maybe ask questions and give some space to see if, when they play it back, there might be some kind of voice or communication. And so, Jen, I have no experience at this. How did you get into doing this kind of research for people who haven't listened to you before?
Yeah. Well, mainly because I've always had paranormal phenomena around me majority of my life. So it wasn't until years later with the whole ghost hunters and all that coming out that I try to mess around with that. So I do have several EVPs, but it's quite interesting when you find some that you actually have conversations and no one's in the house at all. Like, I mean, that's just mind boggling to me. So I do have, I think I sent you a clip of that. I had another one I was working on, but it's just not clear the way I want it to be. But it's still pretty interesting to think how you think of different dimensions, how, we can be right along his side of each other while, the other one's still going in its reality. And then we've got ours. So somehow I was able to tap into that one while it's still happening. I guess that's just one theory.
Now there might be people out there in our audience that say, well, what if it's like what they call auditory pareidolia? Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Do you separate from that? Do you assume that that there could be errors?
Yeah. I mean, I try to debunk it as much as I can. I always try to make sure there's no one in the house. I ask everybody who's been where. We try to think of different ways to try to debunk it. If we can't, then we wonder about if anybody's got any radios or anything like that going on. But if it ends up going with the history of the location and there's animals involved and stuff like that, then it's kind of hard to debunk that.
Right.
So
yeah, there's that criteria, and
yeah.
and the only reason I ask it because I know people out there are going to be like, well, like it could be anything, and sometimes when I've heard them on those shows, I'm like they'll play it back, and I'm like, well, I mean, could say that, I don't know, and I can't hear anything. It sounds more garbled, but
Yeah.
they get something out of it, and I'm like, oh well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, you have to watch out for that too, the whole audio pareidolia. So what I always end up doing is I'll listen to it and then I'll write down, kind of have my own idea, and then I'll have somebody else listen to it and see what they did. Everybody's going to hear the same thing. So that's actually kind of good.
Well, we have Bob Antone in the house and Jean Aside watching. Congratulations. Welcome to the show, guys. So do we want to I can share a screen. I have a whole bunch of tabs up, so I don't know what's what. Did you want me to share one of the TikTok videos?
Sure. Either one.
I'll just grab
go
one.
from there, wherever.
Yeah, I'll just grab one and share one just to give a sample of it. Oops. I gotta pause
if they work.
It should work. It better.
Okay.
I have to share my screen. So let's go to this one. Share. And then there we are. So now I'm going to go back to that one. Now I have to find the tab again. I've just lost my, like, which tab is it? I think it's this one.
Oh.
No, it's not that one. I have so many tabs up that, okay, so it's a Belvoir Winery part 1 that I'm looking for. Here it is. So guys, watch this one. This is a Belvoir Winery, the old folks home. It's part 1 EVP and it's enhanced audio.
So you'll see her lean out. Dorothy, are you down there? If you come turn one on, I'll play some music for you.
No, you won't.
Dorothy, I brought some friends that would like to talk with you. She's down there.
Now.
Yep.
Oh shit.
Wait, no, yeah, lean all the way out, Dorothy. I see you.
Oh.
You.
Oh.
Anybody else?
So that was from a retirement home, or like a senior home.
Well, Belvoir Winery, it's over in Liberty, Missouri, and it's just one portion of it is the winery. So there's, I think, 3 or 4 other buildings. It's a mixture. So it was originally built for the Odd Fellows, and it was a working farm and everything. And so there was a section that they just called the old folks home, but it's actually where they would retire because they just took care of people afterwards. They didn't have a place to live. And so that's where they would live. So there's the old folks home retirement community. There's a nursing home. There's a hospital on site. So those are 3 main ones. There's a small building in the back, like a bunker is what they call it. That's where we find more of our children's spirits. And then the main building is like the administrative building, but it was also an orphanage at one time too. So that one's very haunted too. So like the very top floor. So those are...
So when that this video here
was in the old folks home.
It was in the old folks home. And so they're obviously talking to someone named Dorothy.
Yes. So there was down one hallway. One of the guides that was with us was talking about a lady by the name of Dorothy. And so it's really kind of cool about this building is that when it's pitch dark, you will still see light from outside. And the shadow figures are ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, it's almost as if you're coming to visit somebody that is retired and you're just kind of walking in the hallway and they're sticking their head out, just trying to see who's here. And that's what you experience. So that's kind of,
that's a little bit creepy.
It is kind of creepy. But I try not to think of it in the creepy way. I try to think of it as if it's just, a little old lady that's coming out to see who's here. And they've got made friends with everybody that's still kind of around hanging out there. And so they
have you seen her yourself?
No, I've only been there a few times. So that night, I don't like to investigate with big groups of people. It's too distracting. There's too many noises and you can't decipher what's real and what's not and what's actually, phenomenon. So I really couldn't see. It was so pitch dark and my eyes weren't adjusting enough. So that night I didn't, but I thought it was kind of neat when I went back and checked the footage, and all of those EVPs were just on my little bitty camcorder thing that I had. I didn't even have a voice recorder back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Now, it's what I find interesting about EVPs is it seems to be a form of contacting the dead, almost like a seance or mediumship. Or is there something special about the electronic phenomenon? Like, do you think it's similar to like a medium contacting it, or do you think it's different? Or like channeling? I don't know. Maybe our brains are more similar. No idea.
I'm not too sure. I know everybody's got these different theories, but I just, I think it has to do with frequencies and how we're able to hear things and
tune in
the different dimensions that there are and why we can't even notice the other dimensions that are around us. And somehow when they talk into this little device, it'll capture it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why it works.
No, but I was just wondering because it's like, it almost feels like another form of divination, but it's actually capturing something.
A voice, an actual
communication.
Voice.
You actually have some type of solid evidence, although some people might not think so. But it's interesting because it's spirit communication. You kind of see it progress. And that's why I ask about pareidolia and stuff, because there are people who are who get obsessed and who are frauds, or they get crazy, or they fake it, and they kind of make it all bad for everybody who's authentically trying to collect real evidence. And so that's why I sort of asked. Now, the biggest misunderstanding about EVPs, do you have anything like what, like for instance, I was telling you that a lot of people think that we're doing the devil's work. You're doing the devil's work.
Anything that scares anybody is from the devil, from a certain group of people. If they don't understand it, they can't wrap their brain around it, it's something evil. That's just their first go-to. And I understand it. I was brought up that way to think that way. But even when I was a kid, I was my Sunday school's teacher's worst nightmare because I questioned everything, and I still do. So I don't believe that it's just black and white and that's how it is. I believe there's always, something hidden somewhere that we just haven't seen yet. And that's what I'm constantly looking for. But I don't. That probably is the big thing about EVPs, or maybe just spirit communicating, period. People automatically think it's.
Now, I have a question from the audience. They are asking if you ever pick up reverse speech.
I have had some weird things when I do the Estes session. I always end up getting different languages.
Oh, really?
And I just say them out anyways. I've had a certain location that has a lot of, I don't know if it's German or Russian, and Spanish. I don't know any of it. So once I hear it, I'll write it down and I'll put it in and those translators. And it's an actual word, and I didn't even know it. So
wow, that's fascinating.
There's that, but
right now we got another question.
So then again, that goes with the history of the location.
Right. So we've got. I ask. Okay, so here we go. Wrong one. Have you ever recorded known demonic names or biblical angelic names? Has anything from the Bible ever coming up where they're saying demonic or biblical things?
Yeah, well, on my ghost tube, I get stuff like that a lot. But it's more, I guess it's from both sides. And plus that is a device that's like where it just chooses words. So sometimes I wonder if they're actually choosing it or if it's just a go-to word. But when it comes to EVPs, like recently I added one to my page where I went on an investigation with Beyond Life Paranormal Research and Raven's Eye Paranormal. And we were at a undisclosed location. So it was a personal family reaching out. So they thought something sinister was in the home. So that's why we were there. And there was something. So I was able to catch something. I don't really know that much of, demonic names and stuff, but a certain name came across, and the lady that was there, Julie Couch, she's the one that recognized it and said that it was, a demonic entity name.
Wow. So the one who asked about reverse speaking, they said they asked because they were compelled to speak in reverse compulsively since they were a child, and they have heard it from disembodied voices their whole life. So that's interesting. That's fascinating. All right. So I've got another one. It is called, I'm going to share it right now. It is headed to the McIntyre Villa tomorrow for New Year's Eve sleepover. And I just realized I never shared this. We put a camera in the disturbed man's room in the basement to see if we could catch anything. He spent hours trying to get the camera down. So was he mad that you had a camera? Is that so this is one mad ghost.
He didn't like anybody in that room. And my nephew, actually Steph, she had an extra one. So we put it up there in that room, and he had it set up to his phone, and it would go off every time there was movement. It was going off every 5 or 10 seconds. And it was literally freaking my nephew out. And
Oh, wow.
he just stopped looking at it. And then at 5:00, when we decided to finally lay down, he went back and looked at it, and he's like, "Jen, you've got to look at this." And it was this one, and it scared the
All right.
crap out of him.
Okay, so check it out, guys.
There's even vocal tones in that.
What do we hear? Like, what is going on with that one?
I think he's trying to knock the freaking camera down. It's just not happening.
Oh.
Yeah, you could hear him. So there's 2 clips together because I just did it for a TikTok, like a little quick piece of content. And the first one, you can hear us talking because that is Steph kind of laughing because we're above. So you can hear us chatting. And then the next one is when we're in a different location of the house. And that's why you just hear him like the pound, pound, pound. And then you hear, like him exhausted. He'd been doing it for 2 or 3 hours trying to get rid of that camera. He didn't want it in his space.
Wow. Well, I can understand.
It was crazy.
I'm against smart cities, so I don't blame him.
It was relentless.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It was freaking my nephew out. Like, he wouldn't go to the basement. We did go down there and do a couple of Estes too. And I remember I went down there. Steph has a rocking chair that's haunted. She's got a lot of haunted objects inside of that house too. We went down there and I sat in the haunted rocking chair and did the Estes session. And I could feel something around me, and they kept pulling on the cord, and they kept turning up the SB7. Kept turning it up, and it kept hurting my ears, and I had to yell at it many times. So I have that recorded. It's so funny is that she had her voice recorder in the other room, and then there's this point where I'm just repeating what he says, which was, F-U-C-K. And so as soon as I said it, you could hear it on hers. It said F-U-C-K what? Like clear as day. I'm like, what is that?
Wow, really?
That is a man's voice. Yeah.
All right, so we've got from Chasing Mound Builders again. Have you had any really pleasant, unexplained smells during your investigations, like floral, etc.?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I don't really have to investigate to smell stuff. I'm naturally clairvoyant. So that's one of the things I pick up on fairly quick. And it's fun when you get the sense. There was one location I was at and I couldn't figure out what it was. And something in my head said patchouli. So I'm like, oh, well, it's patchouli, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know what that smells like. And so ever since then, my friends are like constantly buying me patchouli because it's a smell that they smell too when they're in the house as well. So I wasn't the only one that had caught on to that.
So when I was younger, my parents, they bought a house, and the woman and husband who had sold it, they were the original builders. They built it in the 70s. We bought it in the 90s. She was dying of cancer, and he had built her a dream home. And so they sold this home. And not too long after they moved out and we had renovated it all, she passed away. She didn't really get to live too much longer in her dream home. And she was an animal hoarder. And we cleared the whole house, renovated the whole thing. But in the bedroom, in the main bedroom where you would go, and my parents had totally redone it and turned, the main bathroom into their ensuite and a room into the bathroom. Like, it was a big construction. And always, every once in a while, when you would walk from their room to the ensuite where they had their ensuite, which was now a closet area, you would smell this putrid smell, like dying, like a weird smell. And it wasn't there all the time, and it would show up. You'd walk right into it, and then you'd walk out of it, and it disappeared. And there wasn't. Everyone's like, well, maybe there's rotten meat, maybe there's something somewhere. And I'm like, we have checked, but every once in a while, it was almost like she was around there, and you smelt her by that It was
Well,
not nice smell. It didn't happen all the time, but it was the only experience I've ever had with scent. And
hmm.
like we thought it has to be her because she's the only one who's ever lived here.
Is
And
that what she
maybe the
smelled
original.
like prior, I guess?
Well, when you're dying of cancer,
Yes,
sometimes the
that's true.
smell is not very nice.
Yes.
And it was kind of like that. And we pick up on it every once in a while. It wasn't all the time. It was just all of a sudden, like maybe a couple times a year, it would show up really strong and we'd be like, oh my God. And then it would be gone and it would come back the next year. It was really bizarre.
Well, that could be like a placed memory too, just
Mm-hmm.
depending. And that's where you can just start documenting what days and times that you smell it, see if it comes back
Yeah.
each time. But I would hope that someone wouldn't identify like that after they've transitioned.
I
You
hope,
know?
but it happened. And then one night we were having like a Tupperware party and there was a big storm outside. And I bring my friend who always told me she was kind of psychic, but I bring my friend it was at my house. I would bring her to this Tupperware party thing they were having. And we were sitting by the fireplace and staring at the end of the house. You could see the bedroom that you would walk into, right?
Mhm.
The door was open. It would have been going into my mom's bedroom. Everyone's sitting there talking and chatting, all these women, which I'm not really good at. So I'm like, and my friend, her eyes just went, like her jaw dropped, and she's looking at the bedroom door. And I look over and I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, well, don't you see that? And I look over and I'm like, what? She's like, well, it's gone now. And I'm like, what is it? She's like, there was an old lady standing in the doorway and she had a
Huh.
wrap turban on her head. And she's telling me, I'm like, I looked at her, I went, oh my God. And this is like, I had my son by this time. This is probably 10 or 12 years after we had bought the house. This is way, like, I'm an adult. And I looked at her, I said, oh my God. She's like, what? I said, you just seen the old lady that we bought the house from. She's like, no. I'm like, that's exactly what she looked like. She had the silver scarf turban thing wrapped on her head because all her hair had fallen out from cancer. So nobody had saw her. We had just smelled her. But then when it was a storm, it was creepy because it was a stormy night. We're having this big get together and my friend's jaw just drops. And I never had mentioned anything about this woman to her. And it was the creepiest thing. And she was just like, no, seriously, I just saw an old woman and she's just disappeared when you went to look. And when I was pointing, as soon as you went to look, she was gone. And I'm like,
Mm.
well, I said, that's the old lady that I think's around this house every once in a while. She's not here all the time. So
Mm.
someone did see her. It was not me. I only smelt something. And there
Yep.
was a couple of other instances that were weird, but someone did spot her years later.
Mm. Well,
So I
that's
don't know if that
interesting.
was an impression, but it was creepy. And I got little goosebumps because it was like such a your stereotypical stormy night. Like we thought we were
Oh,
going to
yeah.
lose power. I'm like, maybe
Right.
there's something to stormy nights in the energy. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably took you a while to go to sleep after that,
I
too. I
know.
know that would mess with me.
I know. Crazy. So I'm going to pop up. Let's see here. I'm going to pop up another. I have to remove that one as a source. Let's share another EVP.
Okay.
Just for funds, for anyone who's watching, there's probably people are probably all interested in Trump. We're going to share another EVP source here. Let's see. Let's do this one. Here we go. Okay, I'm
Oh,
going
yeah,
to
this
let
fellow.
me pause this. I'm going to make it big so everyone can see it. Here we go. Turn your volume up. It's a disembodied meow.
You can hear Steph laughing in the back. And that beep was my motion detector.
Wow.
So
I'm gonna play it
yeah.
again, just so people can hear. There it is. Interesting. So what's the story of the disembodied meow?
I asked Stephanie about that, and she said that one of the ladies that used to live there had cats. So she's had a lot of people see a cat. they've heard cats, and there's also like a baby too. So I think those two get mixed in together, so they don't really know if it's the cat or the baby that's crying. But she's heard that, but she's got one room that's full of baby dolls, and several are haunted. So that could be the baby cry. I don't know. But my nephew came with me to this house, and we were setting up, and we were down in the dining room. The dining room always seems to be the room where everybody just puts their stuff and gets everything ready. And I was walking away from him, and he's like, "What was that?" He's like, "It's right behind you." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "There's a cat in here. Did she let a cat?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think there's a cat. I'm looking around." And he's like, "It's by your legs." Like the cat was like rubbing itself on me. And I never saw it, but I heard it. Yeah. But he saw the cat.
After we put my cat down a couple weeks, we had to put her down. She was 19. She was kidney failure and all that stuff. And at the time, who's now my ex-husband, he kept saying, like, "Melissa, I swear to God, I see the cat in the hallway. I think I'm going crazy." And I'm like, I would say it's probably just because we're used to the cat being in the hallway. And then I started hearing the cat where the litter box was. Even though she was an outdoor cat, when she got older, I put a litter box, but the litter box wasn't there anymore. I had thrown it out. And so I could hearing, and I was like, wow, we're going crazy. Like, I'm like, whatever, I'm just going crazy. And my ex-husband swore. He kept saying, "No, I swear I've heard the cat walking down the hallway again." And I just sort of ignored it. And then one morning I was laying in bed, and I got up. He took off, and I was like, "Oh, I've got to go get ready for work." I went to the bathroom. I'll lay back in bed for another couple of minutes, and I put my head down. And as soon as I put my head down, I felt this cat walk over my head, which is what my cat would always do. But it wasn't normal walking. It was cold and tingly. When the paws went over, it felt like it moved through my head, and I could feel these paws. And then I was like, what the heck? And then it went back the other way, like she always used to do. She would walk on my head this way, and then she'd walk that way on my head, trying to wake me up in the morning. Yeah. And I jumped out of bed, and I'm like, okay, I get it that you're here. I get it. And I told everybody, and then that was it. She was gone. She never came back. She was just like, "Hey, pay attention, one last goodbye," or something. I don't know, but it was the creepiest thing. I've never had anything like that ever again, but it was the weirdest thing. And I wasn't the only one that was hearing this cat. So I'm all for cats. I think and cats and dogs, they show up.
They definitely do. I mean, I've had the same thing with my cats when they passed away. They show up and they'd cuddle with me at night. I didn't know if it was just a way of me grieving or something, but you could feel them on the bed as if they'd sleep there.
Do you think our minds are feeling sick? Because I've heard people say, well, maybe your mind's feeling something in because you're traumatized. And I'm like, I don't know. I was wide awake. That was pretty damn realistic. Like, I don't know. I guess my mind could, but I mean, it was pretty realistic. And I've never had my mind doesn't normally tend to feel things in like that. But
yeah, hey, I've heard a lot of people say that though, after pets died and they're really close with the pet, they always feel it afterwards. Like they come back to visit. So I think it's pretty normal.
Yeah. And I've heard so many people tell me the same thing, like the cat was laying at the end of the bed. The cat came back the very next day.
Yeah.
He was a goner, but he came back.
Yeah. He wasn't ready to go.
So here's a good question for you. Do you find that there's a time or a condition where EVP works better than others? Of the day or season, or have you ever charted that?
Well, I haven't really been able to investigate that, but I have heard, around the full moon. I do. I mean, you notice more things being amped up around the full moon. I mean, just with, anybody, but right. I think there is some truth to that. But at night, yes. So between 1 and 3, I've noticed that too. They call it the witching hour. I don't know. I don't know what has to do with that time. But then again, if you think about it, there's a theory that time doesn't exist. So why would it exist in other dimensions? So then my brain gets a little warped thinking about that too, why it matters.
I'm wondering if because things are quiet and there's less people more likely have all their electricity is off and things are quieter and there's not a bunch of interference, that it's easier for them. I don't know.
They can be heard more, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because nowadays we got television, we got cell phones, we got all the hum of electricity is constantly going. But
yeah, and I've gone to different locations when it's busy and when they're open, and I'm like, oh, this is, you just can't, because it's too noisy and everyone's screaming and walking around. You just can't get into that frame of mind where you can be like, is there something here? You can't relax, you can't do anything. So you literally have to rent the space out and sit there quietly and see if anything happens. But that's the whole thing.
And you have to keep going back too, because it won't always happen.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Sometimes, you'll show up one time, nothing. And the next day, it's just active. So you just never know. You have to keep going back.
All right, let's check out another video here. And it's October 20th, Ghost Tube Seer AI generated images.
Yes.
Now, what before I play this, what is this?
This was something that was introduced by Amy and Jared. So they have their own YouTube channel, and they've got their own paranormal equipment that you can, purchase over your phone. So there's Ghost Tube, which is kind of like your spirit box, except for it's more like an Ovilus. And then they've got a Vox that's like a spirit box. So it does flip through. They got their own little mini SLS. And then they just came out with the Seer. So the Seer has the AI images. So what Spirit's supposed to be able to do is just put some words together. And then AI is just supposed to, come up with these pictures. What's fascinating is that once I get these apps, I constantly use them just to see if I can debunk them to see whether or not there's any truth to them.
Right.
And I use them at historical locations. And so far, they've always really hit dead on.
Wow.
This one here, I posted it because it was kind of personal. I thought it had something to do with the location I was at, but I wasn't sure. But at the time, that's where my head was going until I got back into my car and listened to a voicemail from my cousin. So that's what this kind of talks about.
Okay, let's have a look here. AI generated images from a Ghost Tube app.
It looks like it's got angel wings, maybe. What? I'm getting another heavenly picture. Those are angels, and that looks like maybe that's where they want to go. That's why they're showing those pictures. Oh, and up above the stairs are people waiting. That's where they want to go. Yeah.
Wow, that was actually really relaxing.
The music's nice, wasn't it? Yes, I know.
Yes. So the images are showing, it says something like someone from a heavenly person from the other side? Or?
Yeah, the first one is a congregation of people just kind of being there, and they're all got white robes on. I've had that before, a couple of times before. So I think nothing of it. It's just like right in a row. Then I got the angel with a horn. And then right after that, I got another one. And around the time I was getting those, actually the time that I got the one that's very heavenly-ish, because you've got the big angel on one side, and then you're seeing all these massive colors in the middle. And then on the other side is kind of like your stairway to heaven. Because if you look closely at it, you see people waving at the top. Mm-hmm. They're little people. They look like they're little, but of course it's AI generated. So I'm like, oh, it's the stairway to heaven, because it took me a while to figure out what the heck it was. It was a weird image. And so at that exact time, I did get a phone call from my cousin, and I didn't answer it because we were in the middle of our investigation. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think much about it at the time because I had my head wrapped around this investigation. But when I got back into my car, I listened to the voicemail, and what the voicemail was telling me that my cousin had just passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, as you were
Right when
doing
those were
this,
generating.
wow, that is
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, so you have a camera in the background that a red light that lights up. Is that like a detector of some sort?
Oh, I left my flashlight on.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that this red light. Not, it wasn't your foot. It's on your top shelf, and I thought you had some kind of detector thing because this red
It
light.
is. It's
Yeah,
my
it went off while
yeah.
you were talking. It was like I was
Mhm.
like, "What's that?"
It's
And
a
I thought,
it's just it's a flashlight that only spirit's supposed to be able to do it. So I don't really
okay,
know.
well, it went
Uh,
off while you were talking there. It looked like hell from Space Odyssey 2001.
Interesting. So I'll
It
have
went
to
off while you were
ask.
talking.
Oh, that's
Hey, you
whether or
can
not
watch back
somebody's
and see what you were
actually.
talking about on the replay, but it actually that light, that detector thing went off while you were talking about the AI thing. I was like, "Hey, wait, what's that?" It's
It
off
must have
now,
been
but
pretty bright then, but
yeah, it was. It was. You go check it out on the
Mhm.
replay. It was definitely happening. I'm going to pop up another video because we're coming up to 40 minutes here. So I want to get some more. If anybody has any questions about the AI generated sort of spirit box sort of app thing, pop them up and I'll ask Jenn. Let's see. Share screen. Let's see. Let's try this one and we will. Oh, this is the old folks home. We showed it before. This is part 2. So we're going back to the old folks home, the Belvoir Winery. Here we go.
Oh. Anybody else think that's weird?
Yeah. Whoa. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy. Can you walk all the way out? And lean all the way out? There you go. Come turn a flashlight on for us. Can you do that again, Dorothy? I'll play Sinatra. She likes Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Hello. Well, thank you for turning that on.
I just felt something weird too.
Start talking about something else, and they're like, thank you for turning that on.
So
Can't really hear that one very well.
there was memories, and then there was another one, and then there was help me.
Yeah. That's when I was learning how to do audio, and I really sucked at it. So I was trying to enhance them, and sometimes when you enhance them, that makes them sound worse. But
Right.
the help me one, it's kind of like a whisper, and there was a man afterwards that says no, she wants to stay. That was when we were down in the lobby in the Oaks folks. So it was in between the Oaks folks home and the nursing home, and this woman was asking for help. And this is all on my camcorder. It's just a little cheap camcorder I had back then. So no voice recorder.
Right. Well, do you because that when they say help me in that whisper, I can see why people think, oh my God, that's not very nice because it sounds really negative. Like it sounds kind of demonic. They're like, help me. I can see why people get a little spooked by that. Understandable. Well, when I was advertising the show, just to let everybody know, I had someone comment saying that we were dealing with the devil. And I mean that they're entitled to that opinion, but I think it's it's good to talk about it, and we don't know what it is. So, we're all good people, and I think we're protected. So I think we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else here. Okay, I'm going to pop up another one. We'll go back to back to back here and see what we got. Well, let me see. There we go. We saw a glimpse of a resident ghost. Let's share this one up. Oh, did we do this one already? I think we did this one already. Let me see here. There's quite a few of them, so apologize if I so let's remove this source again. Let's pop this up. Share screen. Trying to see if it's one that I haven't. There, let's try this one. This is the bunker of the Balvor Winery.
Oh, okay.
This
That
is
was a
one we
good
haven't
one.
seen before. So let's have a.
And did you like when we were singing earlier? And did you like when we were singing earlier?
So play with it. So play with it.
All right. So what's in the bunk? What was in the bunker again? What did it used to be? Was it the old folks or was it
No.
children?
I really don't know too much of the history about the bunker. I know that children used to play in there a lot. There's different stories and stuff, but I know that's where they encounter more children. And usually when you go in there, we always sing like "Ring Around the Rosie" and all that kind of stuff. And
Do they
children
seem
will
to
play
like
with
that?
Yeah, they'll play with all the devices. It's usually very active in there, just depending. So if you've got like I don't have one next to me, but like an EMF detector, they love to play with lights, any REM pods, anything like that.
Interesting
And they'll
that
just,
they kind of know how to do that.
Oh, they're used to it.
Everybody's coming. Everybody's coming in there with EMF detectors now.
Once you start opening that Pandora's box and letting God knows who onto your location to investigate, you have no idea what doors they're opening. So, yeah, the kids that are there supposedly enjoy playing with the lights. There is something, however, that I think that's down over in the morgue nursing home area that to me could be low level something. But I think that is something that was just manifested on its own from too many investigations, which you'll find that at a lot of.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think that there's some people who are actually manifesting stuff out?
Mm-hmm.
And it's showing up because that's what they want and they're manifesting. And my husband was asking that and talking about that, which I thought, well, that's interesting because we know we're powerful,
I think we're more
thoughts are
powerful than we think. Yeah.
Well, why do you think they want to control what we think and what we feel?
Yeah.
As them, I mean the system.
Yeah. I mean,
that's exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am. No, I have a question because we got 15 from it. Because you're a historian, Jen, I always wanted to know if there was a location that you had your eye on historically, anywhere in the world, that you would love to spend the night or a couple of days investigating and doing all that. What would be your dream location to go into?
Oh my gosh. I haven't been to a lot of places. That's the thing. I'm kind of stuck here in my little Midwest area, Missouri, and haven't really got to do much.
You've got fantastic history there, though. Vincent Price is from St. Louis, and his father ran like a candy factory there. There's tons of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of good stuff. But I mean, like if you're talking about the whole United States or further on, like there's just so many different ones I'd love to go to. I do know that for at least in Missouri, I haven't been to Pythian's Castle yet. I've been wanting to go there. That is down in Springfield. It's got some very interesting stories. Limp Mansion, just because I love the history. That's over in St. Louis, you mentioned.
Right. I watched a video of that Grimm Collective. They're on YouTube. They went there and they filmed it and they walked through. So that's cool.
Yeah. I've had people show up there that say they don't get anything. And then there's other people who have been there and have gotten it. Like for one, so like the Sally House.
Hmm.
That one I don't even know if I want to go into because I'm very sensitive to energies. And if there is something, ominous in there, I don't want to be around it. Because you just
Yeah.
hear all these stories. And so my brain's already tainted walking in because I've already heard all these stories, which sucks. Because when I go into a
Mhm.
location, I'd rather not know anything. But I've asked a few people and they're like, I don't get anything there. It's like, it doesn't do anything. Like I fell asleep. I'm like, really? And then you've got,
Wow.
every single YouTuber that's been there. It's so demonic and
Well, I guess, the thing about it is if they want views and clicks and young kids like that
exactly. I
stuff,
know.
they gotta put something up.
Mhm.
So I always wanted to go to Edinburgh, Scotland, and go to the underground vaults.
Oh my gosh,
They have
yes.
they have an
Mhm.
underground city. It used to be main city and it got built over and you can go for tours. I always wanted to do that. And I always wanted to go to Croatia or no, Romania and Croatia too. But the areas of Romania where Vlad Dracula had his real castles and
Oh my
different
God, yeah. Oh
different
my gosh.
films there that I'm like, I can't remember. I think they shot the movie The Nun there. I've always wanted to go to these
Mhm.
locations in Eastern Europe. Whether I will or not, I don't know.
Mhm.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
What kind of entities has she gotten? I wonder if there's any aliens or fays, or do you believe that you can pick up on anything other than a human?
I think I have. Um, I've even had something show itself to me in my house, and it was more of a, and I kind of fey-ish.
Interesting.
Um, wish I had a picture to show you, but I've talked about it before on different podcasts before, but it's a mixture between a goblin looking and a fae. So it was just for a split second too. It was right next to my bed, smiling at me. What? I was like, I must be losing my freaking mind. What is that here for? Um, and then, gosh, so with the ghost tube, I have my normal group that talks to me a lot, and they're
Mm.
always warning me about things that are going to happen,
Right.
or something's doomed, or they're always just, I don't know. I don't know if it's a guardian angel, your higher self, all that, terminology a lot of people use. I just know it's something that's from a different dimension that's always around me that's either trying to protect me or warn me. I get that a lot. So I don't know.
Interesting. So it's a protective thing. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing bad.
All right. Seances. Have you ever done those?
N-
That's totally different than
Never done it.
EVP. Never done
Never
it.
done it. I've
That's old
never done it.
school.
Never
That's
done it.
old school. So I know, okay, one of the histories of EVPs, I was looking at this, is it was started, I think, in 1941, and then 19 by Attila von Zasley. And in 1956, she started to use the reel-to-reel recording. You know, the old reel-to-reel recordings that they had, those big machines.
Oh
You
yeah.
had these two big reels, and they started to use that. And I think that's when they started to get results. And there's a movie out called The Changeling with
Oh
George
my
C.
gosh.
Scott. And in
Hmm.
it, that's what he uses. He's recording a seance they do, and he uses the reel to reel recorder. And this all made up, it's supposed to be based on a real story. And he
Huh.
gets this whole ghost story and figures out what happened in the house. And it's totally dramatized, like you never get that stuff. But it's interesting to see that stuff was in film back, but they used reel to reel. They didn't have digital
Huh.
recorders. I wonder if there's a difference because that's where it started. That reel to reel, I guess, started showing results to some people who
Yeah.
were testing this.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's this new, well, it's not new. It came out in the 80s, I think, and every ghost hunter has it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually stuff from the villa has maybe one or two of them. They cost thousands of dollars. I think it's called a DR60. Just those old ones. And so it'll record as soon as it hears something. And every time you hear something out of that, they just sound like this disheveled being that's just nasty. But what it is it muffles up the voice. So I think that's the reason why they stopped using those recorders. But people now, everybody wants one because you automatically get a voice and they respond and you can hear them clearer, even though it's a little muffled. But they always sound a little scary. But those are like the number
Interesting.
one voice recorder everybody wants. They're like $2,000-$3,000, and they're
Well, I guess
from the
they probably
80s.
don't make them anymore. So you're
Right. Yeah,
you're
they're
limited.
expensive.
Yeah, supply is limited. We have John Aside wants to know if there's any trickster type phenomena that you experienced, like things that would do tricks, I guess. I don't know.
I think so.
They're all over the
You know,
place.
so I just bored, and here I am talking to air, like they're paying attention. You know, they're all that dynamic is around us 24/7, so they're aware of it. So they see that I'm trying to talk to. They see my intention,
Mhm.
and they want to play around with it. So I do get those, and I know exactly when it's switched to the trickster. And I tell them, I'm not here to play your games. I'm only here to speak to, you know, I'm here for good intent. I just want to speak to somebody if they need help. I'm not here to play any of your games. Usually they'll leave, but I also know when they're around too, because I get really, really sick. I've
That
had
happens to me.
elementals too, as well.
Oh, I remember that. I think I said this on the last show from Lep Castle in Ireland. They said they had one. I never even heard of it before. I'm not even sure. Is it like some creepy spirit? Like, I'm not even sure what it is.
Well, gosh. I don't think I'm not good at explaining things. That's one of my downfalls. So it's some more of your old, they call them the old ones. There's like different terms and stuff. So they're actually from the earth. Like they're your
Right.
earth-bound entities that have been here for a long, long time, and you can't get rid of them. Like you can't. You could probably, give an offering or something like that, but they're
Right.
you want to be on their good side. So there's some stories where like maybe even with the Fae or like the little people, that's another one. So if you actually show up in their area and you tear up their area, you will have like bad luck for like the longest time. And sometimes I've heard these stories where these people actually could see those little people, and then they would make some type of deal with them. You know, I'll move out of this area, and I'll make sure that what I destroyed there, I'll put a garden there. I'll put something in there that's for you, so you can use that. So I won't have any more
milk out for you or something. Whatever.
Yeah. So that way they don't have any more bad luck. Like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You know. But there's those types of stories that are out there.
Well, Wikipedia says, and I know we're all not always too fond of Wikipedia, but it's just describing what an elemental is. They say an elemental is a mythic supernatural being that is described in occult and alchemical works from around the time of the European Renaissance, and particularly elaborated in the 16th century. What do they say? Geez, they're not even giving. They're just saying it's a mythic supernatural being. They're not really. They give a bunch of different. They say there's nymph, sylph, pygmy, salamander. Like it's getting a little.
Yeah, there's all different types. A lot of them are like, you hear more people talking about the little people, the pudgewuggies, or just the little guys. Those are more your fae trickster type ones. Not like what people think of fairies. It's not your Tinkerbell. These are different.
All right, I'm gonna play one more EVP. See if I can find something here. What do we got? Okay, let's share this one. It is The Morgue. Did we play that one yet? I don't think we did.
So.
Yeah, so we're going to listen to The Morgue. I'll make the screen bigger. Here we go.
Is it too late for visitors?
It's the agony. It's the agony.
How long y'all been doing this tour stuff here?
Oh, there's a lady that was humming all the time.
We have 40 minutes left on that.
Drained it.
Yeah.
Ooh, when I pull it out like that, it's not funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what it looks like down there. Oh yeah, that's it drained it, and it took me a second, and it all of a sudden it came back on, and when it came out, it was burning hot. So that's what I was saying. Oh my God, it's hot.
So the meter spiked, and then the camera died. Is that's what happened? So the EMF meter.
Yeah, there was a little lady that was following us around, and I caught her a lot, and she was always trying to talk, but it came up as a I was all the time, and it was always in the nursing home or the
Mhm.
morgue. So she was only in those areas. It wasn't in the hospital or the old folks homes or anything like that. It was in those areas. And they do tend to follow you. Like, I think I sent you a couple of clips. There was one, like a little clip. I don't remember which one it
I
was.
can
It
find
was
it.
just the little voice ones. But this
Oh, let me see if I can. I'll see. I have them on my
I
computer. I'm
didn't
going to
really
see if I
even
can.
put
I
down the
can.
name, what it was. But one, we ended up asking how many people were down there. And this was actually in the morgue. And one of the guys was, I think he said something again like that. And then we got the voice of a man saying 9.
Oh,
But they do
wow.
like to go down. The morgue's always quite active.
Yeah, the problem with that, I couldn't download properly. It downloaded weird because it was
Yeah.
a file in Facebook, and I don't want to open up our discussion in Facebook on the
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't anything special about it. It was just
Yeah.
sending files or whatever. But that's interesting. Have you ever considered writing a book or elaborating on any of your experiences or research?
I've had many people tell me to do that. I just I
It's
haven't done it.
hard. It's well for me. Like I always think about things, and I'm like, how do I get started? And everyone's like, just start. I'm like, where? I guess
Yeah. What's the beginning
I
step?
guess an outline where you say
Yeah.
intro, da da
Mhm.
da da. These are the topics I want to discover, and then start writing under each topics. And that's what I found
Mhm.
I had to do. Is I had to, even when I'm writing essay, I don't write. I do a title.
Yeah.
This is, and I do a title for every section that I think I should, and figure out the narrative, and then I start writing under each title
Yeah.
for a blog, and then I re-edit, and then I'll throw it through AI editor, and I'll have that edit it to catch any of my mistakes and my grammar, my poor grammar, and then I'll go
Yeah.
through it again and again. But that's how I do blogs, so I guess I have to do the same thing. But books are a little more intimidating if you've never done it before.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's a little more
I've never done
intimidating.
that before. Mm-mm.
Okay. So, do you have any tips? Like, we could have maybe have some people out there that want to go. Or before we leave, do you have any tips or recommendations or anything you want to close out with about EVP and whatnot?
Well, EVPs are kind of hard though. It depends on the location. Like
Mhm.
some of the places I like to go to always has road noise.
Right.
So it's really hard when it comes to EVPs. EVPs, you want a nice, quiet place. And even if you have somebody else with you, you always have to mark when you say something. So that way you know it's not an EVP. It was actually you copying or you sighing or it's real easy to kind of confuse that.
Right.
But it's always to do short ones. Like for me, I tell people to do short ones all the time. Just ask a few questions and then stop. That way you go back and listen. I always go to a room and I leave it. I say what I
Mhm.
want my intention is, and I say I'll be back in 30 minutes. Sometimes I won't be back for 2 hours, and then I got to go back and listen to it. So
Right.
that's usually not the best unless you're okay with listening for 2 hours.
So, do you
Um,
have any filters or like a windsock or a pulp filter, anything you put on that helps clear static? No.
no, I have these. I don't have good equipment at all. I'm not that type of
Well, like
investigator.
those things are what people like I wouldn't expect
I
anyone to
know.
have it, but
Yeah.
sometimes like if you're gonna go outside and you have a microphone, like
Yeah.
I tried to record stories for my old podcast about locations outside, and I had to throw all the footage away because it was, I mean, the sound
Oh,
was
yeah. When you're
so
outside.
atrocious.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I needed like a windsock or something like that, and I
Hmm.
just didn't have it. So I was like, so it was a whole waste of time because if you're standing on location, they're not going to be
Yeah.
able to hear you if things are whizzing by, and even if
Hmm.
there's wind or an airplane, it's like, and the one thing you want when you're doing a podcast or doing anything to present is you want good sound because people will shut it off because it's irritating to
Oh,
their
yes.
ears.
That's
You don't
true.
want a whole bunch of static. So that's why I was
Hmm.
like, I was asking if there's any sound tricks because it's, yeah, it just, I don't know.
I don't know. There might be something. I know a lot of people spend a lot of money on these really good audio recorders. I've always wanted to get one of those handheld ones that, and you put the headphones in your ears, and you
Mhm.
just kind of aim it, and then you can hear it in real time. I always
Oh,
wanted to try one of those. I've never done
Nice.
that. But to record, I know there's certain type of ones, but I've had some people that have helped me with EVPs, and they ask me what type I'm using, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, it's cheap. It's not one." They're like, "Good."
But you could,
Like they say
that's where
those are better.
you could start off with something cheap. You don't have to spend tons of money,
No, you don't.
basically.
Not for voice recorder. I mean, I know people that just still use the old tape recorders, cassette tapes. They prefer
Wow.
those. Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's fine, but if you want, I guess electronic or whatever digital is easier if you want to upload it for the internet.
Yeah, that's the plus to it. But I think I've talked to a couple people that do the EVPs that mentioned digital sometimes is um, a little wonky when it comes to, like, it can be misconstrued or something like that in some way. I don't really know the whole science behind it, but
All right.
that's what I use anyways. The cheap one. It's just this little bitty one.
We
Little
could
bitty
probably
cheap one.
have. Oh, look at that! I think Mike has something. I think my husband has something like that.
This little tiny.
So we could probably do a whole podcast on this, and maybe one day we will. But have you ever heard of the book Phone Calls from the Dead, or people getting like actually calls from the dead after they're dead, basically?
Yes, I have heard that. I have heard that.
I wonder if that ties into something with EVP, because when I was researching EVP, they were talking about this book, Phone Calls from the Dead, that this person had written that was also doing EVP. So I thought that interesting that it went to the telephone, and I thought, oh, how does that happen? How do dead people call you? It's really interesting.
I don't know either. And the more I've used the GhostTube app, the more I get messages, and it's always somebody that seems like they're confused, like as if we're talking to each other on a telephone. But they just always like, well, you shouldn't be here. Well, why shouldn't I be here? I'm in my car, whatever. I'm just always kind of being a sarcastic butt. And then they're just, what? Like they're confused. So then I'll ask them, so are you not in my car right now? Where are you? And they'll tell me they're somewhere completely else. So like, how are we talking to each other?
Yeah. It's interesting.
I don't know.
Because I know I had a relative they passed away, and 2019?
Mm-hmm.
And was it my mother? I don't know. Someone was sitting there. It was months and months after they had passed away. And they came back, and there was a text message from their old phone number that they had canceled from their cell phone. It was sitting there, and it was garbly. It didn't make any sense, but it was from that number. And the relative phoned the relative passed away, and they're like, no, we canceled her phone. Like, it's gone. We canceled that number after she died. And my mom's like, well, I just got a text message from it. Because it was in her contacts.
Stories like that. A lot. That happens a lot. I think I remember having something like that happen when my brother Chris passed away. I still had his phone number, and I'm trying to remember. I think my phone went off, and it said his name, and I didn't catch it. And of course, I was all upset. And then I ended up contacting my mom about it, and she's like, "Well, I think this is his ex-wife, whatever she had it. Maybe she butt dialed you or something." But it happened a couple of times.
Because like people could say, well, maybe the person with the new number got it, but they wouldn't phone you. It wouldn't be in their contacts. Like they might get that number, but how would they know to call you? You know what I mean? Because they recycle numbers sometimes.
Yeah.
When you shut it down, but they wouldn't know on their phone. They wouldn't have you in as a contact. So it's not like they would call you. But yeah, I've heard of people like months after someone's died, there's a text message.
Phone call. Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing.
Or a voice message. There's a text message from whoever, which I find a little. I was like, woo.
Yeah,
it's very creepy. I've never had it happen.
It is very creepy.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just over the hour mark. I want to thank you for coming on and
sure.
We didn't get through all the clips, but we got quite a few this time. So that was fantastic. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Do you have any last remarks you want to say before we shut out?
I mean, if you're curious to see any of the other videos I have, I've got, TikTok, which is under Karaoke Ghost Hunter. Same for, my Facebook's probably under my name, but you can watch those if you're interested in those.
All right. Go to Karaoke Ghost Hunter on TikTok. She's got
Mhm.
lots of videos. And then you're on YouTube. Now, you just made a YouTube account, right?
I
Jenn
do
Dorrell?
have it. I'm going to end up re-airing my old Haunted Jen,
Perfect.
which is actually that videos that we were showing. It was little snippets of it. So it's actually the
Right.
full 30-minute video of Belvoir Winery. So I'll end
All
up
right.
adding that back.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I'm just going to put you in the green room. Just hold on a second.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for watching the show tonight. I'm planning a political show, which will be totally different from this one and different day in the future. But I will let you guys know when I do that. It's going to be some kind of Gen X-y thing. I have the wrong paperwork. I just want to remind you guys what's coming up on the show. So next week, Tobe Johnson, he has a coming on with his partner, the director of the film about Sasquatch and the paranormal. On the 6th, that's a Tuesday, we have Walter Bosley coming on. The 13th, Gary Parsons is coming to talk about Hammer Horror, his lecture on Hammer Horror. The 16th of February, Joshua Cutchin's coming. And then the 28th, I have Dave Cruz coming to the show. And I haven't booked March up yet, so we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to end this stream now. And congratulations, Donald Trump. He won New Hampshire. No brainer. I knew it was going to happen. So you guys take care, and I will see you next Wednesday. Someone wants to know, what are we talking about with Walter? I think we're talking about Tataria. So go look that up. Tataria. It's some kind of... I haven't totally researched it, and I don't have all my notes, so I can't expand on it. But Walter will expand on it. So thank you guys, and take care.